Today we are going to be multiplying rational numbers. And when we multiply rational numbers, sometimes we'll be dealing with some positive and negative numbers. So I wrote out just a little template here of different sign rules. And when we have two negatives being multiplied or divided, we end up with a positive. A negative and a positive, or a positive and a negative, both make negatives. And two positives being multiplied makes positive. So basically the rule is same sign is going to end up being a positive. An odd number of negatives will be a negative. So let's take a look at the first one here. And on this one we are trying to multiply a integer, the negative 8, by a fraction, 7/16. So the first thing I would do is write that integer as a fraction. And now look for cross-canceling. See, we can cross-cancel diagonally if there are common factors, and 8 and 16 do have a common factor. And so what we're going to end up doing is dividing this 8 by 2, and I'm going to divide this 16 by 2. I'm sorry, let's go ahead and divide it by 8. I was thinking of the number. And so let's go ahead and divide by 8, and that cancels that 16 out all the way to a 2. And the 8 into 8 goes one time. So now what we have is a negative 1 over 1 times by 7 over 2. So when I multiply straight across, because there's no more cross-canceling to do, I end up with a negative 7/2. However, this is an improper fraction. We want to change this to a mixed number. So let's go ahead and do that. So now we're going to do 2 into 7. 2 goes into 7 3 times, with 1 left over. See, 2 times 3 makes 6. Got 1 left over, so I got to add that decimal, bring that decimal point straight up in the quotient, and do some more division. 2 into 10 goes 5 times. So our number is going to end up being negative 3 5/10. If we wanted to change it to a mixed number, then what we would do is once we got to the remainder, we'd write it over the denominator. So again, that could have been at the stage of 3, and I had 1 left over, I would write it as 1 over 2. And so that whatever remainder we had, 1 over the divisor 2, and that being negative. So that's another way to write that same answer. So either one would work. Let's take a look at the next one here. Here we have two fractions. So we're going to go ahead and do some reducing, just like we did before. See, 6 and 18 have a common factor. We can divide them both by 6. So let's go ahead and do that. We're left with 1 up here. 18 divided by 6 gives me 3. Over here, 17 does go into 51. It goes in there 3 times. So we're going to go ahead and do some division there. Divide by 17. That's where I'm getting 3. 17 into 17 goes 1 time. So let's see what's left over. We've got negative 1/3 times by another negative 1/3. Well, two negatives make a positive, so we're left with 1/9 as our answer. Number 3, we've got a fraction and a mixed number. So whenever we've got a mixed number, here's where we have to change this to an improper fraction. So 2 times 8 plus the 3. So 2 times 8 is 16. So again, I'm doing 2 times 8, and I'm adding the 3. And it's always over the divisor of 8. So that makes 19/8. And I'm multiplying by 3/4. Well, I look for cross-canceling. Now, I can't cancel straight across like the 4 and the 8. Only if they diagonally will reduce, but they don't. So we have to multiply across. So I did 3 times 19 makes 57. And so again, I showed that by just doing 3 times by 19. That's where I'm getting the 57 from. So that makes 27. Carry the 2. 2 and 3 add to make 5. So that's where I'm getting the 57 from. And then 4 times 8 makes 32. So now I'm still not done. You see, we've got an improper fraction. I need to divide 32. And see how many times it goes into 52. Well, it just goes in there. I'm sorry, 57. It just goes in there 1 time. And so now I've got 1 times 32 makes 32. Do some subtraction. I'm left with 25 left over. Well, I'm going to write this as a mixed number. 1 and 25 32nds. That would be our answer there. 25 over 32. Whatever the divisor is goes in the denominator. Well, 3 more problems here. We've got negative 6 times by this decimal. So 2 and 52/100 times by 6. Now I know it's 1 negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative at the end. So I put that answer in there, that sign in there first. And when I'm multiplying, you don't need to line up decimals. That's the nice thing about this. And so we just use the regular technique. 6 times 2 makes 12. Carry the 1. 6 and 5 make 30, plus 1 makes 31. And then I have 6 and 2 make 12, plus 3 makes 15. Now the rule is, I'm going to move the decimal, the number of spaces that are after the decimal point. So 1, 2, 2 points after, so it moves it over 1, 2. So the decimal point goes there. So negative 15 and 12 hundredths. That's our answer. Well, looking at our next problem, we've got a decimal and a decimal. So it doesn't matter which order you do it. You don't have to always put the bigger number on top. I'm choosing to actually put the number that is bigger on the bottom. And the reason I did that is because it ends in a 1. Whenever numbers end in 1, it's easy to do the multiplying because the numbers don't change. Now remember, figure out your sign first. Negative and a negative. Those two negatives are going to make a positive. So I know the answer is positive at the end. So now I multiply. See, here's why I like the 1 on the bottom here, because 1 times 2 makes 2. 1 times 4 makes 4. So I've already done that. Now I'm on to the next iteration. Now I'm moving over 1 decimal point. So I have to add the 0 as a placeholder and then multiply. 9 times 2 makes 18. Carry a 1. 9 times 4 makes 36, plus 1 makes 37. So now I add this up, and I end up with 2. 12, carry a 1, it makes 8, and a 3. And so from this point, I need to move that decimal point over the number of spaces that are after the decimal point. So it's 1, 2, 3 points over. So 1, 2, 3. Put it there. Now it's a positive, so you don't have to worry about writing the signs. So 3 and 822 thousandths. That's how you read it. Wherever the decimal point is, you say and. So 3 and 822 thousandths. Let's move on to the next one here. The last one it is 93 hundredths. We're multiplying by 8 tenths. So I'm multiplying, so I put the 8 tenths on the bottom because it's only a 1-digit number, and I go ahead and multiply. So 8 times 3 gives me 24. And then I get 8 and 9 makes 72, and 2 give me 74. So now I count the spaces after the decimal point. It looks as though there are 1, 2, 3 spaces after the decimal point. So it's going to move over 3 spaces, all the way on the left-hand side of the 7. So we would write this as 0 and, so where I see the decimal point, I say the word and, 0 and 744 thousandths is the way we read that number. So that's what your homework's going to look like tonight. Good luck.